I was thinking about what Trev, Casey, and Amira said, right? And I don't think it's masculinity that they're exuding. What I would call it is actually toxic femininity. And if you think about it, it's because if you think about why men lead with it versus why women lead with it, there's a complete different reason for why we would come to a woman and say, I got this, I got that, I got that. It's because we're trying to prove to her, I can take care of you and the family and the kids, yada, yada, yada. Whereas when a woman leads with her finances or she leads with that energy, it's because she's telling you, this is why I don't want, this is why I don't need you. It's a totally different dynamic. And I think that's something that is exclusive to women and when it comes to their femininity, because they expect a man to still be a man, but they weaponize their accomplishments against men when they don't, when they're trying to disqualify them or write them off or diminish their role and diminish their importance in life. So I would argue that no, I don't think it's toxic. I don't think it's masculinity or the worst parts of masculinity. It's toxic femininity when a woman comes out and leaves with her wallet and leaves with her accomplishments and leave with her money, because what you're really doing is you're trying to beat your chest to tell us how inferior or how unnecessary we are in your life.
Can I answer to you, Sweeney?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you said that, I'll disagree with you. The reason I disagree, I hear what you're saying and I understand completely your concept, but I disagree because toxic femininity is using feminine traits in an evil way or a toxic way. A feminine trait is not leading with money. That's a masculine trait, especially something that women envy. A lot of women have penis envy. And I hate to say it that way, but it's kind of vulgar. But a lot of women do have penis envy, and they're using that masculine trait that they see that men have against them. But using a feminine trait against a man would be something like using their vulnerability against a man. Like you see women always crying wolf, that kind of stuff. Now, that's a feminine thing that
I would
is a
not do.
feminine trait, but women use it against men in an evil purpose, in a toxic way.
So over
And
mopping the
the
floor
other thing I
or
wanted to
over
clarify one
cleaning
thing.
can be toxic femininity. Over cleaning the house or some shit.
Will you stop it, Mr. McPherson? No, the other thing I wanted to clarify was Lapeef. I had, when I answered your question about value, I wanted to clarify what I meant about value, because remember how we said that the men are born without value and they create their own value, while women are born with the value that slowly decreases. I say that in the sexual market concept. But once a woman is married, I believe that that sexual market value is irrelevant at that point because she is in a marriage, she's stable. Then I believe a different type of value begins, her marital value. And I think that's the thing that I wanted to clarify, where she becomes valuable to that man. So he no longer has to see her as competing with other women because she's his. She's owned. She's already owned. She doesn't need to compete with other women's. Well, she still will, but she doesn't have to in his eyes because that's his. She's his. That's what I meant by when she gets older, she has developed value in his eyes, and that's what's important. Because maybe another man might see her as old fat woman, but he looks at her as the mother of his children. That's the woman that birthed my children.
When
Every
my wife
mark on
get
her
when
body
my
was
wife get
something
fat,
that every mark on her body was something that came from our marriage, our life. So he's not going to
I'm glad
see.
you cleared that up, Amira, because I was going to say, what do you mean a woman value to her husband decreases by her age? I was really, but I'm glad you cleared that up.
when my
That's what
wife
I
get
meant.
fat, I'm gonna look at her at the same. I'm like, that's my wife. That's the
But
mother of my child and my wife, and she beautiful. No matter, I don't care how big she get. That's
but
gonna be
It's
my
then
different.
baby.
that's how men, like, there's a reason why you can look at an old couple and you can still see the light in their eyes when they look at each other, because somebody, I think this one dude, I was watching this show and this man said that oftentimes over time, no matter how old a woman gets, the man still sees the woman he first saw when he looks at her, even though she's old and wrinkly and everything else, he still sees the same woman he saw when he first got with her. That's
I've
the
heard
woman.
that before too.
And I'll be honest with you, I still see my wife as the same woman that I saw when I first met her. I don't.
I don't know.
But that's because she's
I
valuable.
was gonna say, hold on, wait a minute. The reason why I paused for a second is because we met in high school. So
Oh, I thought you paused because she ran across the screen or something like that.
I thought he was getting choked up.
Oh, you thought you were gonna tear up? I'm gonna do that
I
on
thought he was
purpose.
crying too.
I thought he was like remembering the moment of when he saw her.
I was thinking about all of that, but then I thought about it like, am I supposed to still see it the way it said when I first saw it? Because we was young
If you would
as
have teared
shit.
up, this shit would have went viral. I'm
How
gonna
you
do
went
that to see if
there,
I can get the
Sweeney?
numbers
Stop.
up one day.
I feel like when I heard the clip, I agree with him when it comes down to finding a woman of value, but I don't think that's traits that only women should aspire to have. I think men should also aspire to have those traits. I don't think that. I feel like if we both have trauma, we both should be actively working on it. We should both be considerate. Just talking about the characteristics, I don't feel like any person should lead with their money. Far as women who don't get married, I don't feel like every woman's value is in marriage. I've noticed like one of my friends, she don't know if she want to get married, but she's done so much work within the community and within the kids. Like I do agree with Casey. I feel like a woman's value, especially within the home, is to keep things together. But I feel like some women also take that value and they do that with the community too. I've seen women who aren't married right now. They're keeping the communities together. They're focusing on the kids. Millionaires are hiring them just to help keep their companies together. I feel like women just keep things together. I don't feel like women actually go after those traits, because even on here, when you hear men talk about the value of women, I really like, I never heard a man say that before on this podcast. So it's like, if men aren't recognizing that value and speaking on that value, then how will women know to aspire to be that? Luckily, I was raised in a church and I've seen families, and I hear my grandmother, she was married. I seen my mom be married, and my grandmother, she did keep the family together. My mom, I did notice that I wish in certain situations, especially with one of her husbands who was a great stepdad to me, even though he had his issues, I felt like they could have worked harder, and I felt like because my mom, she did lead with a lot of masculine traits, that she and because she was like the top earner, she didn't recognize that value within herself. So I agree 100% that women should really just pay attention to how to keep the family together. And selfish women, they shouldn't, like, when you lean with your accomplishments and you lean with your job, sometimes your purpose, you get thrown off track. Now you're taking on a man's purpose just because you're at that time earning more than him, or whatever the case is. Like, no, your value is to keep this family together. And I feel like even after the kids leave the house, your kids are going to ask you, how did you keep the family together? You're still continuing that legacy through your kids. You know what I'm saying? So even though the kids might not be there, you can still help with the family. Or what if a woman is unable to have kids? It's not fair to say that because she didn't have kids, it's nothing. No, she can still be of value to her family, because I know when it comes to me, I don't just think about my household. I be thinking like, is my sister cool? Is there, because I'm a big sister too. So I'm thinking like, is there any advice I can give to her? I still think about my grandmother. I still think about my grandparents. I think about keeping all of them together. So that's
Why don't you
really,
just have your own family?
because some women can't have kids,
When
that's
has
just
that stopped?
something they can't do.
It's
But
2025. That's not stopping people from having families.
They just adopt, yeah.